In this week's episode, we talk about Mars moving into his detriment of Libra and what this means. We also talk about the Venus making it square to Saturn. And this is what started my idea of the Rapunzel. Relationships can get stuck. You may feel isolated. You may feel like you're in that tower without any road out. Also, I've got a special surprise for Alex at the end of the podcast, Our House. So to hear more from this week's transits, tune in to this episode of Astrological Intentions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Astrological Intentions. I am your host, Alex Reevy, along with the Freedom Force herself, Sandy Reevy.
Yeah, whatever that means.
It is episode 164, September 13th. Let's get right into it. In the transits, we have Tuesday, September 14th, Sun opposing Neptune.
Watch your step.
Tuesday, September 14th again, Mars ingress Libra.
Now he's in detriment.
Thursday, September 16th, Sun trine Pluto retrograde.
Alert for us.
And Sandy's astrological interesting day, Friday, September 17th, Sun square Saturn.
Rapunzel.
And the Talisman Times that Sandy has finished up: to write worthy content to increase sales, to be gentle, diplomatic, and magnetic. And today is a wonderful day. Then the special one upcoming: to convey good spirit as my asset. Then on the horizon, I have some announcements for you. And in our house, we have a surprise for you. Sandy's actually going to be surprising me with what the topic is. What is it? Listen until the end of this episode. And tune in for another episode of Astrological Intentions.
And so you finally know you control where you go.
Hello, Freedom Force. Want to know why
Freedom Force. I can't think of a thing about that.
Just because you had intended to be out of town.
Oh, yeah.
And now those plans have freed you up to this very free week
of doing a
lot of things.
Stuff. Yeah, no, for those that have wished me prayers for my brother, that brain surgery, removing a tumor, got canceled, or I should say really postponed.
Yeah.
Because his wife came down with COVID, and
and they're not going to operate. Yeah.
Hours before the operation, and all the neurosurgeon, the brain surgeon, and the anesthesiologist are like, nope, we're canceling. Right. So then my plans changed. My other brother's plans.
And then you couldn't really go down anymore to visit.
Yeah, because my mom was they were at a party on Labor Day weekend, which, this is what everybody's reading about.
Right.
Everybody, has put their...
We're not over it yet.
Their guard down.
Right.
And some people are vaccinated and some people aren't.
Right. That
were at this party,
So let's go direct to all of our listeners. Thank you again for listening in. I can't believe that I skipped over this or I missed this feedback, but I wanted to loop around, and Meg Fitzgerald, if you're listening, this is a shout out to you in Hartford, Connecticut. She sent in a feedback form that says, I first heard of you by searching for podcasts on astrology. I've been listening on and off for maybe 8 months now, and I finally joined the email list. I joined the solar powered webinar. I've been into astrology passively for years now, but I want to study it more seriously. There are so many moving parts, and I really loved Sandy's breakdown of the information. The worksheets are awesome, and having a lead line and Sandy providing greater context, it was completely clutch. The glyph breakdowns equals mind blown. It's a new way for me to remember the way the energies are present. I feel exhilarated by this new knowledge gained today, and I'm very much looking forward to plotting these dates in my calendar and checking back in with the worksheet prompts. I also feel less intimidated by astrological charts in general after today. It's helped a lot of concepts sink in deeper for me. I also very much appreciate your focus on the sun. Everything you see now is all about the moon, this and that, moon this, moon that. And quite honestly, I feel like the moon is something to question more than anything than so blindly celebrating it. It feels like a fad for many today. The sun is a power that we take for granted, and this gave me a whole new appreciation for it. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Aww.
P.S. I love that you were a mother-daughter team. That dynamic really stood out to me from day one listening to the podcast. I applaud your efforts, and I'm sure working closely as business partners and just being mom and daughter has its challenges, but keep doing these great things together. How great is that?
Beautiful. Applause
Yeah.
for writing that.
Beautifully
it makes
written.
Me feel like we both should take a bow.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So Meg, if you're listening, shout out, because I know that I totally skipped over this, and apologies. I just, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I need to loop around and grab this one. So shout
and she's
out to
talking
Hartford.
about the solar powered year.
Yes.
Which is a webinar that I did a while ago. However, the dates I give you are always the same. You know, the sun moves around.
Right. You only need to take this webinar once.
One time. Because you're given like 11 pages of worksheets that are always in your inbox, I guess, right? So that every year that you get to a new year, this will be one of your January 1st assignments.
Are you talking about your calendar?
Print those up again.
Right.
And put them in your calendar and watch that energy come to life.
Cycle through because it's coming again.
It's just watching the sun moving around your natal chart,
right?
Which it does the same day every year,
right? And so it kind of turns into this cyclical pattern similar to the seasons that we have going on, thanks to the sun rotating, or I guess us rotating, but it's that cycle, and the way that the sun transits in your chart is kind of your own seasons. So you get to get that cycle,
it's
deep
funny.
into your calendar, deep into your experience.
So this was impromptu.
Right.
What is my least favorite holiday?
Probably Halloween.
Yes.
And what is my one of my favorite holidays?
But that fact that the day before Halloween, I have something going on in my chart that the sun is doing an opposition in my chart. And it's like, I will never like that day. I don't care if I could be the princess, on high. I just don't like that day because of what's going on in my astrological chart.
Interesting.
It happens every year. The day on October 30th. So just interesting, like, why is this particular day in the middle of summer such a great day? Because the sun may be trining your Venus or conjunct your Venus, right? And It's just like, oh my God, I can count on that day every year to be, loving and personable and social and maybe shopping or spending money, but unless there's anything major going on, say like if you had a Saturn sitting on your Venus, then that 1 year would have been a little bit different for you. But yeah, it's pretty cool webinar.
Yeah, to see where the sun transits.
That it is. And it's available at any time because it's recorded.
Right. But what we do is we put together all of the reports and send them to you. The recording is going to be the same because you're going to be prompted how to use this worksheet. But really it's a very cool webinar. And if you haven't done it before, you only need to do this once.
In your lifetime.
Once in your lifetime. But I'll also put the link in the description here, or you can head to our website and look up solar power.
I have a funny story about that. Is it?
Sure. Go ahead.
Gosh.
Impromptu again. We have like a whole prompt.
Well, there's a bunch of surprises, I guess, too.
Yep.
It was funny. We were in Bali with one of our retreats a couple years back, and one of the attendees had taken that solar powered year webinar, I don't know, months earlier. And she must have brought, well, she did. She brought all the paperwork with her. And we're at breakfast that morning, and she comes up and shows me and points and says, look what today is. And she pointed to it, and I had said, climb a tall mountain, something like that.
Yeah, or it feels like you're climbing a tall mountain. Yeah.
And of course I knew, because I had to kind of assist her to get to the right people, because she got picked up at 2 a.m. earlier that day and climbed Mount Agung.
Right.
Which you've done, but
it's
and
not
then
an
she
easy
got back
task.
down. It's time for breakfast. That's how like the sun. You get up there in the dark, watch the sunrise, and then come back down. And she's like, "Look what this was," and I did not look at this until
I remember.
I
just remember being across the room when she showed it to you, and I didn't know what you were talking about. But all of a sudden, your sheer face of astonishment and shock. Your eyes were big, like your mouth was wide open, and I was just like, "What happened? What happened?" And it was perfect. It was so.
I mean, sometimes you write things like climb a tall mountain means symbolically,
figuratively
do
speaking,
something that might be a little bit trying, and you can get easily up faster. And here, literally, she climbed the tallest mountain in Bali.
Yeah,
in the dark.
In the dark, yes. So let's move into this episode. Let's get this episode started. So in the transits, we are going to start this week with Tuesday, September 14th, with 2 transits. First one, Sun opposing Neptune.
This is at 4:21 a.m. So, as long as we can stay in sleepy town, this won't be so bad. But I called it Watch Your Step. So the night before or the morning, this is on Monday, it's applying to by Tuesday. Watch where you walk, watch what you talk, and how you listen. The key here is to ask clarifying questions and to automatically offer clarifying responses so that you don't need to, oftentimes I tell people when they're not listening, because I've had to have this in a probably 30 years ago. It used to be like when I'm talking to someone it's a very important conversation, and you think they're listening but they're not, right? And so you just move on and think, okay, they heard me, they know what the situation is, and it was claimed I never heard you never said that to me,
right?
So this is kind of that energy of that Sun opposing Neptune. It's like kind of that willy-nilly, I don't really understand. It's kind of foggy.
Do you see me
right,
correctly?
Did you understand me? So what I put into our practice when something was very, very important for one of us to understand, we literally had to come over and hold the other person's arm, like the forearm. Like seriously, like pay attention. This is very important. Mm-hmm. And so I know that you're listening. So it's kind of like what reminds me of what I implemented in, years ago.
Yeah.
Because what you could be saying on Tuesday is going right over somebody's head, or you're not understanding what they're saying, right? It works on both teeter-totter sides. Mm-hmm. So watch what you say, watch how you say it, and watch how you listen. So be clear here.
So let's move into the second transit of that day, Tuesday, September 14th, Mars ingress Libra.
So Mars is moving from, Virgo, where he's been for about 6 weeks, now moving into Libra, and he's in detriment in Libra because he rules Aries, which is the opposite. It's the 180-degree sign. These two are polarities. Aries and Libra are in opposite placements of the zodiac.
Right.
And so when Mars rules Aries, yay, but now he's over here in Libra, so he's in detriment, which means it's the opposite sign. So there's an inconsistent flow of action. Anytime a planet is in the detriment, which Venus is in there now in Scorpio. So, but it's like, but wait, he gets and gives help. He's in a mutual reception with Venus.
Right, because they're both in
Scorpio.
they're both in detriment, right?
They're both in detriment, but the reason why they're in mutual reception is, think about this. Venus is in Scorpio.
Yeah, which is mainly Mars ruled.
And Mars is in Libra.
Which is Venus ruled.
So they've taken over the other person's domicile, or let's say house, right? Where they are in charge. So it's like
they're doing a house swap.
They're doing a house swap, although they're adverse because Libra and Scorpio are next door to each other with no windows, and they can't see out like a mud wall or a brick wall. So they're called averse, and they can't see or ask each other. But we need to trust that their housemates know how to manage. So Mars has the ability to maybe see notes from Venus, and Venus is seeing notes left over from Mars. So this really could be, and this happens every 2 years. Mars is a 2-year cycle. And is there a direction change going on here? Because Mars moving into the sign of other people, right? Mars is like, I'm going for it. Get out of my way.
Yeah, I'm the leader.
Right? And, I'll do anything for, I'm confident, and I'm entrepreneurial, and I can move forward.
He's the warrior.
And he looks and goes, oh, there's a lot of other people here.
Right.
Or there's somebody important, one important person here.
Or now I have to be the judge and really consider both sides of the story, which wouldn't necessarily be his first choice.
No, so thoughts need action.
Okay.
It's that kind of what we talked about earlier in the day. It's like speaking and then listening. I have somebody in my life that will ask a question and never care about the answer, and then go on to the next question and never care about the answer. And it's like, oh, that's funny, because if you would have listened, I answered your second question in the first question's response. It's kind of like Mars doesn't want to listen in because he's in a place of where he's not comfortable.
Like kind of more selfishness.
He's not comfortable. So, it's almost like pause, take a deep breath, listen, and how will you both take action on this, right? So it's really about making choices. You'll have to say, no, I don't want pizza tonight. And Mars will have to listen, because Mars wanted pizza and said, okay, how about if we go to the joint that has sandwiches and pizza? Is our compromise here?
Mutual detriment. There we go. So Thursday, September 16th, Sun trine Pluto retrograde.
Alert for us. And the alert for us is it's a trine to the sun. So when an outer planet is retrograde or direct, is making a trine to, sun is coming around and making a trine to that planet, we know that planet's about to station.
Okay.
To move into the next direction. Well, we know Pluto's retrograde, so we're getting the sense that in about 2.5 weeks, we're able to know that we're able to know here that Pluto is stationing to go direct. And it can make us feel that we're able to handle any situation. It gives us that power source. It's a trine. So here is the sun, which is that the ego power of authority, of knowing, and trine Pluto, and Pluto saying, yes, let's fill up. Let's fill that up. So maybe you're coming out of a sticky situation or a sticky area since last April, so 5 months ago, where you can finally see it's starting to clear up, or you're finding a solution. Maybe you're getting an answer, or whatever it was, it's kind of taking a back seat. You're able to clear it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your astrologically interesting day, Friday, September 17th, is Sun square Saturn.
Yeah. This happens at 7 degrees, and this happens at 1:15 a.m. Rapunzel.
Yeah.
So if any of you bought the cheat sheet for the month of September, and it's still available, This is where when I was writing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally reminds me when relationships get stuck, right? Venus square Saturn. So here's the red flag that you can throw in the air, throw it up, throw it on the ground, wave it in front of someone, because you may need a ref. It reminds when you were playing your women's
the pool tournament,
women's world pool tournament in Vegas. You know, we're watching, and the opponent would pull up a red flag, and I'd be like, "Don't you be pulling a red flag on my daughter?" You know, I'm sitting over here at home watching. And the ref would come over and whisper in your ear, or just stand at the end of the pool table watching your move, right? So it kind of reminded me of, you know,
that red flag.
You need a ref here because Venus is the relationship of you know, is the planet of relationships and love and art and what feels satisfying and what is, you know, desirous. But it's in Scorpio, remember? It's got to get to the bottom of things. So when I came up with this like, oh my God, this sounds like Rapunzel stuck in a tower with just a window way up high and has no way down or out in the middle of a land, you know, forest land, that this really is that that placement where she's locked up in a tower by a wicked old witch, you know, that grew those rampions, you know, those root vegetable parsnip radishes things. So, you know, this is where it was this day that when I was like, this is my astro interesting day. And I said, I'm going to do a story day, number 1. But I actually had to start the story at the beginning of the month. So anybody who sees the storyline will understand. Like, this whole month is about the lead up, and this is kind of the crutch day, right? Like the grinding day of completely feeling isolated and alone and like limited
in a challenge,
like isolated. You can't. You're not around anybody. You know, you can sing to all your heart, but nobody can hear or respond or have a conversation with. Yeah. You know, unless
so it's rich. It might be a lonely day.
Yeah, it could be a lonely day. Or is it that you do need a ref?
And let's move into talisman times. You've finished up 3 talismans this past week. We'll start with Wednesday, September 8th, to write worthy content to increase sales.
My intention to detail and messaging produces all the good things I expect. Wealth and prosperity increase now. So this sold.
Yes, it was a pre-sale.
It sold a pre-sale. I was on a reading, a solar return reading with a client. And her solar return time was just minutes before this.
Yeah,
so
that's
this is imprinted. This was the 15th lunar mansion. This is the moon, just in a new moon phase in Libra, coming up over the horizon, making a connection to Mercury and Venus in the first in Libra. I mean, this was
the synchronicities were there.
It was just all about, and it was like just minutes before her solar return. So she's like, it's mine.
Perfect.
And this
and it went along.
Energy will stay with, not only will it stay in the talisman, but it is her theme
for year.
This year. So
do you ever
that has never happened to me before.
Do you ever make talismans for people's solar return times?
I can suggest. It depends. There might be something in
that you don't like.
That you don't like
talisman wise.
I don't want to pull in that energy for the entire year.
Okay.
What I can do, and what I started here is just saying, oh my God, you know, this reminds me of the talisman that I'm about to make on this date. And I got the paper out. I'm like, oh my God, it's just minutes before you. She's
That's
like,
so crazy.
Tell me how to buy that. And I said, yeah, it's yours. The fact is that I definitely think, you know, if you're going to buy one talisman a year, buy it for that solar return, your birthday. But have it be your birthday gift to yourself, or have a friend buy it. Well, you know what? We should put a little special on the website, like a solar return reading and get your talisman for your solar return reading, because I can suggest something like if you're having a like 1 year recently, I had Mars sitting right on my ascendant, and Mars is my harder malefic.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be something that I would need to calm that Mars down or give me a direction to use that Mars energy. And because I knew this, I woke up that morning and started immediately on a Martian plan because I had the energy. I woke up and go, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do. And I put it to it. And you know what it was, Al? Remember when I was diligent and focused on doing all of the planets in the signs, and I was like plotting them out and like setting up, like when I did Taurus, I set up in my where I had my garden.
Oh, are you talking about the Instagram videos?
Yeah, when I would wear all green and then give everybody, the modalities of Taurus and what it means, who rules it, and some of the keywords.
Yeah.
I did it for 24 days straight. Because
it was
that was
fun.
That Mars energy.
It was definitely a creative challenge.
And it was that Mars energy. So, yeah, I would love to do something that had the... here's your energy. You don't get to pick the energy.
Mm-hmm.
The sun, your sun picks the energy for that year, right? Because the sun is what comes back and aligns with your same degree of your sun and your same minute of the sun. So where all the other planets are at that moment, it's like a frozen transit for the year for your themes and what's arising and what's preoccupation. So if we can lean into that, do some, added energy, like if you've got a beautiful Venus, like if you've got Jupiter in the 10th house in your solar return, let's bump that up and find a talisman that is about, fame and visibility and career and reputation, and finding a Jupiter in the 10th house that was already made. Anyway, okay, I ramble on.
We'll talk more about that.
We've been in networking conversations this whole week.
It's been a lot of brainstorming.
Lots of stuff is going on behind the scenes here today.
Okay, so I will keep you all updated on that possibility for the special offer of that solar return year talisman. However, let's move on to the next talisman time of last week. Thursday, September 9th, you had two. The first to be gentle, diplomatic, and magnetic.
I attract all the good graces to me easily. I am worthy of this success, happiness, and every good thing with me now and coming my way. And this is a nice one with the moon in Libra, making a trine to Jupiter and a connection and a conjunction to Venus.
Yeah, I was going to say Jupiter's definitely in there. And same with Venus, is that magnetic feeling, that attraction. And last but not least, same day, September 9th, today is a wonderful day. And we talked a little bit about this one last week, where all of your intentions start with 2. And this one is the only kind of exception where it says today is a wonderful day.
It's 2 words. And it's funny because when I typed it in the website, it's like, no, you got that wrong. This word goes together. And I didn't put it that way. So today is a wonderful day. I celebrate all my wins. I move forward and believe in myself. This is with the moon is getting enclosed by Venus and Jupiter. This is one of Sandy's favorite. So if you Google Sandy's favorite on the website, right? Is that how that works? This one will pop up. Today is a wonderful day. How beautiful to be able to say that to you every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a general. I made one bracelet. It's a large bead. And it's kind of a really cool coloration. It's got some black and white dots in it.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. It is very cool. So check that out on the website. The link is there in the description for you. Also, if you are having any trouble with the links on Apple Podcast or Spotify, just head over to it's intentionbeads.com/podcast. That's where you're going to get all of the live links and the full description. So let's move on to your upcoming Talisman Time, Friday, September 17th, to convey good spirit as my asset.
I possess hopes and wishes for myself, those I love, and my community I live in. Everywhere and everyone I focus on is greeted with the same luck that rubs off on them. This is a disseminating moon. I'm going to start talking more and more about the moon. I know that reading at the beginning said, "Oh, the moon is overemphasized," or whatever she said, but that's part of my surprise for our house tonight is more about talking about some of the moon goddess energy. But in this talisman, let's stay here, Sandy. The moon is in the first house, making an aspect to Jupiter in the first house.
Mm-hmm.
And Jupiter rules the 11th house, which is why it was important to say hopes and wishes for my community and the people and everywhere that are greeted with some luck, because that's 11th house energy. The 11th house doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, we have sold out of our Talisman of the Month to be surrounded by happiness and love. So tune in for our announcement next month for our next Talisman of the Month. And I have included in the Talisman Times the Your Solar Powered Year webinar. That is the one where you get all of the dates. You only have to do this webinar once, and you have the dates forever. Let's move on to the horizon, where if you haven't already, check out the September astrology forecast that is on our website under our blog. Links are in the description. We still do have, I believe, one space left, unless you and I have not updated recently. And we have one spot left for our Mexico retreat. This is January 1st to January 8th. Those links for the more info and the deposit are in the links below. And don't forget, mark your calendars. October 2nd is our astrology forecast for those dates of October. And we will next week be having our cheat sheet for October. So I think that's all so far.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're not. Well, we are going to Mexico. I am running that retreat. That's our next thing. That's all there. It seems like
that's all there is right now. And so let's move into our house, where you have a surprise for me. What is our topic? What is it?
Well, remember last week we read the 18 descriptions
reasons
of
why
you're a witch.
Yeah, why they were executed as being witches. Yes. And
we got a lot of feedback about that, right? Just like, oh my God, like, that
can't believe
funny.
it. Yeah,
it's me. And I'm reading a 30-year-old book that Demetra George has written called The Mysteries of the Dark Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And there were about 200 of us from around the world that were in a class with her that just ended a week ago. So we delved into this book. And actually, she wrote this book 30 years ago, as I said, and now it's
coming back.
Well, she's not rewriting it, but she ran this 1 month long
class.
Yeah, like teaching class to get into this book and understand about the phases of the moon and what the dark moon represents. So
let's have it.
As we talked about the witches, this past week I get to this page, and this is it's a page and a half. So I'll read a paragraph and then we can discuss, and I can read another paragraph and we can discuss, just so I'm not reading this whole time.
Okay.
But this is from Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demetra George, who is amazing moon goddess. She's an asteroid goddess aficionado. Can you call him that? And this is, I'm going to just read page 38. And she's talking about how the ancient goddesses were depicted and revered, and then the gods came in and demoted them. So this is what she writes. I read verbatim. In the psychology of humanity, there occurred a polarization.
Got it.
Between the male gods who came from above, bearers of the light, and the female divinities who dwelt in the darkness of the caves and earth. Light was equated with good, and dark with evil. The wars against the goddesses were conceptualized as battles between the forces of light and darkness. In India, the light-skinned Aryans from the north took over the matriarchal, dark-skinned Dravidians from the south. They instituted the caste system in order to keep the dark-skinned goddess worship peoples subordinated in the lowest class. Caste. Interesting. So I guess I know about that in Bali. When we go to Bali, there is a caste system.
Mm-hmm. And it's distinguished by the language that they use,
mm-hmm.
which is still so crazy because that's then a lifelong caste.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you can't necessarily move.
That's a family. That's a tradition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's your language.
Mm-hmm.
Think about you're at a certain level in the world because of the language you speak. And I know that that's not the point. So let's continue.
But that's the first time that the caste system was put into order, to have somebody at a lower ranking, right? And they were saying that the dark, right, because that equated to evil,
right,
versus light was equated to good.
And then they then reflected that onto skin color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's keep going. As the goddess became distorted from an image of the compassionate mother, the source and sustainer of all life, into a symbol associated with the forces of darkness and evil, women, her earthly manifestations, were likewise considered impure, evil, and guilty of original sin, people who must be punished. They became the property of their fathers and husbands. Women who had sexual relationships outside of the patriarchal monogamous marriage contract threatened the certainty of patriarchal bloodline transmission and were ostracized and killed as whores and harlots. Their illegitimate children were deprived of all legal rights and social acceptance.
Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of this is sounding eerily familiar, too, with modern day. So let's continue.
To continue, in classical Greece, hailed as the birthplace of democracy, women were deprived of their citizenship, of the right to vote, and the passing on of their names to their children. Ideal love was envisioned as the love between two men, especially between an older and a younger man. Women were considered unworthy of meaningful emotional and intellectual relationships. Their only function was that of bearing legitimate children who could inherit property rights.
Bleh. Gross. Okay. Well, but I agree. I think it's so strange, too, that where did it come from that people's surnames are solely from the father? Mm-hmm. I never really understood that growing up. I was always thinking, like, why couldn't it just be where you have, the father's surname and the mother's surname together?
Mm-hmm. Like, how much would you really
like a
like
hyphenate?
That of my maiden name?
Reeve Langenbrunner? That'd be great.
Yeah, the Langenbrunner.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do?
Long.
You're going to battle for, what if you were marrying the Langenbrunner man, and your last name was different? Would you then be like, oh man, darn it?
No,
But
I know.
no, so you're not going to battle and say whose last name is better.
This is a respected name.
But I also think that the women, just the woman of the relationship or within the, parental tree of life, I think needs to have meaning there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's important, regardless of what the child does with the name later. They could change it to Flower Child for all, the parent can control. But, at least to know that they're equally from their mother and father, I think that that's important.
Let me continue. The early Roman Christians methodically suppressed all information that did not originate from the church. They closed down ancient Greek academies and burned the books of great classical poets, philosophers, and scholars. The eternal flame of the Vestal Virgins in Rome was extinguished, and the great initiatory temple of the Eleusis in Greece was smashed and the rites prohibited. In the 5th century, the great library at Alexandria was razed, destroying the last repository of the wisdom and knowledge of the ancients.
Mm-hmm. And this actually just came up in a conversation I had recently of the ancients definitely held so much wisdom. Because even, just think of
Plato, right? Aristotle, right?
Right. I mean, the philosophers, the great philosophers, the, those wisdom keepers. But even prior to that, the buildings that are still pretty much erect, or at least
partially
walls are. Yeah. But you think of it, I mean, in Chicago, we pave a road and that's gone within a season. It blows my mind that these buildings have withstood the tests of
pyramids,
centuries. So it's just kind of like, and they're finding pyramids that are beneath the ground and, things that we haven't even really discovered yet. And it's just so interesting that we're such toddlers who think they know so much, but we really, we may never know those secrets.
No, if they were all destroyed,
right?
In this patriarchal, like women snuffed down, men rose. But prior to that, it was the women were in charge, right? We were the wisdom keeper, and we still are. We are still the wisdom keepers. Let me continue. The Papal Council of Constantinople, also in the 6th century, outlawed the concept of reincarnation and cyclical renewal. What became branded as paganism and witchcraft in medieval times was simply the folk customs of country people. That's all they knew. Now I break for a second. It's their folk customs.
It's their tradition. Yeah.
That's all they knew. But yet, okay, so I continue. They still related to the forces of the natural world and ritually celebrated the transitions of the agricultural mysteries. The whole, I break for a second and go to, planting a seed and developing the growth.
It's one of the most magical things that you can ever see.
And then the dying on the vine, and then, the going back into the harvest. And it just it's a cyclical. It's just like the menstruation, right?
It's just like the life cycle. It's just like the human cycle too. So continue.
I'll keep going. The Inquisition and witch hunts of the Middle Ages systematically eliminated all those who continued to remember, practice, and pass on knowledge of the old religion. Midwives, healers, and diviners and ancient devotees of the goddesses were branded as witches. They were persecuted, murdered, and their properties and holdings confiscated by the church.
Well, I mean, that's what we discussed last week. I can't, all of those 18 really incredibly random and just fear-driven reasons why they were going to execute someone because she was either a strong, financially independent woman, and it definitely goes along with this patriarchal society that.
Let me continue.
Yep.
I'm moving on. Matriarchy and the worship of the goddess were smothered into the dark of prehistory in the realm of fanciful legend. The remnants of the matriarchal teachings that survive can be found in the mystery religions of the cults of Demeter in Greece, Isis in Egypt, Kali in India, Cybele in Asia Minor, and the witches and fairies of old Europe. With the creative spirit now conceived as masculine, the new patriarchal religion moved increasingly toward monotheism and replaced the earlier pantheons of many gods, goddesses, and elementals. The one absolute Father God, derived from the male spirit, ruled alone and supreme in both heaven and earth, and he denounced all the old deities as heathen idols. The final destruction of the ancient triple goddess transpired when her threefold nature became transformed into that of the Father,
The Trinity,
the Son,
yeah,
and the Holy Ghost.
which I mean, you see a lot of that in religions and you know, faith constructs, is that it's kind of borrowed. You know, it's taken. There's similarities throughout all of them, and I always go back to this the symbolism of the blind men with the elephant. Do you remember this story?
Remind me.
So there's let's just say 4 blind men. I can't remember the number. 4 blind men from all different areas, and they come, you know, hands in front of them, and they congregate around this big god-like beast, let's say, and this is the elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all examining this animal, this god, in their minds with their hands, or what they could really, like, you know, sense from it by not seeing it. And the one is saying, wow, this god is fluid and meldable, and, you know, and is very airy. I can feel the air coming from it. And he's touching the trunk of the elephant. The other person is got his arms around the foot of the elephant, and he says, this god is strong and will crush you and is powerful. And, you know, and there's also the one that has the tail. He's, you know, examining the tail. The other one's examining the ear. And so this is kind of what I think is religion and faith, is like, we're all just touching a little part of what God truly is. And we're trying to, with our eyes closed and with our hands as sensitive as they can be, we're trying to describe what is God like. And since we're only human and we only have these, you know, 5 senses, that's all we can
You
really
only have
do.
4,
4 senses.
Right? Yeah.
Do we have?
Well, no, because you took the
Oh, well,
eyesight out.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, even now with eyesight, with all of this, like there's only so much that we can witness. We all, you know, especially I totally believe that our listeners believe in this, but like there's more out there from what we can even perceive, even visually. When we look at the spectrum of color, we can see a fraction of what colors there are. So for me, it's like, there's so much more out there, and we've only been able just to like witness and experience just a little bit. And that's all we're trying to do when it comes to Judaism and Catholicism and paganism and is Hinduism and Buddhism and all of these like different religious teachings, is like, we're all talking about the same thing. So why is it that, you know, and I think that the blind men, you know, lesson is that they all start arguing because they think they are 100% concrete with what their God is. And so that they separate and they hate one another because they're not listening. Right. They're in disagreement. So it's so reminiscent of my beliefs on like where kind of religion comes from, and I think it's borrowed and shared and just that story.
And to your point, if I go back to that sentence, it said what became branded as paganism and witchcraft in medieval times was simply the folk customs of country people. Mm-hmm. In other words, this was their tradition. This is what they knew. This is what they were, what was sent down from grandma to daughter to son, and over again, just like recipes or how to, plant and harvest. These are the stories, and these are the, beliefs that then looked, like you said, one other entity comes in and says, that's bad. No. Mm-hmm. You need to be burned, right? So, and one of the reason why, because the mother goddess, the moon goddess, is the triple goddess. The triple goddess is, maiden, mother, crone, right? Someone that was, in those stages that, and it was through the menses that the woman, the girl,
like went through transformation,
went through, and it was just every month and for their entire lifetime. And it was, once menopause occurred and one stopped having their blood flow, that was incredible divine wisdom. Right.
And it reminds me a lot of these rites of passage that, we've kind of lost a little bit. Now if a girl starts her period, it's kind of like she's just handed a tampon or a pad, and it's like, okay, just, this is a little gross, but here's your sanitary products. Mm-hmm. Instead of it being really celebrated, like, oh my gosh, you're now a woman, you're now, it's not as important, which to me is kind of crazy, right?
So I've got one more little paragraph to read, but let me just kind of talk about the priestesses, the feminine priestesses that literally were what everyone went to, and there was a temple that you would go into, and there was a transformational ritual that would occur to help the men, because the men were going to war, right? And the women were home taking care of their babies. And there was a certain group of women that would call in the males as they came back from battle, full of blood, anger, hostility, and,
trauma.
Trauma. Yeah. That this priestesses would work through sexual healing.
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. Okay, yeah. Go on.
So, I wanted to kind of say that before I read this last paragraph. So, in the new monotheistic cosmologies, patriarchal culture tactfully acknowledged the first two aspects of the ancient goddess trinity, the Virgin and the Mother, now envisioned as an image of ideal feminine who gives birth to the Holy Son without the defilement of sexual intercourse. Women's sexuality was accepted only for the purpose of creating offspring and continuing the race. And the memory of how the sexual energies of the goddess were also used for ritual, healing, and regeneration was abolished.
Oh. And I think that is one of the uses for sex. It can be that transformational, that healing, that really connected feeling of love,
of regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, since we
that's
talked
interesting.
And this just is, a brilliant astrologer that wrote something 30 years ago that just is really interesting to me as we dive into.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Cool. Well, I think,
That's
I mean,
it?
and
Enough-
unless
enough
anyone,
about witches.
right, and if anyone wants, of course, please send in your feedback. I'm gonna want some for next week. So email me, alex@intentionbeads.com, with anything that you want to share. Even if you have questions, we can go ahead and bring you into our house and answer some of those questions that you have. So again, email me, alex@intentionbeads.com, and make sure to send this podcast to your friends and family who you think would love it. And I think that's a wrap on our episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.
And so you finally know you control where you go.